Okay, here we go. So, all right. Last I left us off, we were talking about alternation of generations. We talked about alternation of generations in angiosperms and flowering plants. Remember, we started with the mosses, the bryophytes, the non-vascular plants, the plants with no plumbing. Let me turn this sound down a little bit. And then we went to ferns or to lycophytes. Then we went to uh, then we went to ferns, then we went to conifers, gymnosperms, then we went to angiosperms, flowering plants. Okay. What we're going to talk about today is taxonomy, but specifically taxonomy in the context of plant identification. Looking at a plant and being able to tell what family it's in by looking at what, not the leaves, looking at the reproductive structures, the flowers, and the fruits. Okay. Since angiosperms, flowering plants, comprise about, I don't know, 80 to 90% of living, that is extant, non-extinct land plants. We're going to be focusing on flowering plants, on angiosperms primarily, but it's the same with conifers. If you're trying to figure out what conifer you're looking at, normally you can tell by the leaves what family it would be in, but if not, you look at the reproductive structures. Okay. Whenever I meet a new plant, I always ask, what family is it in? All right. And we'll get to that now. Okay, that's the knowing what family a plant is in. You can tell by looking at the flowers or the fruits, and that will tell you exponentially more about it, because things that are in the same family are somewhat closely related. Okay, uh, different levels of taxonomy, whether it's order or family or whatever, things are placed in those according to what level of relatedness they have, which we can quantify with DNA data by literally looking at the DNA barcodes, the sequences of A, T, C, G, the 4 DNA base pairs. And also, we can hint at it by looking at the flowers, which is how botanists did it before the advent of DNA sequencing, before polymerase chain reaction made DNA amplification very easy to do in the 1980s. So let's look at this presentation. Taxonomy, plant identification, and flower morphology. Taxonomy of living things. There you go. There are all the different levels, of taxonomy. Okay, with species being the most narrow. Okay, everything that's in the same species, if a bunch of plants that are in the same species are much more closely related than plants that are in the same genus, or plants that are just in the same family or in the same order, etc. But taxonomy works with everything, with viruses, with humans, with bacteria, with fungi, etc. So of course the biggest one, domain eukaryote. Okay, eukarya, cell with the nucleus, then kingdom, animalia. Like this is for humans: kingdom, animalia, phylum, chordata, backbone, class, mammalia, etc., etc. Okay, same thing for plants. We're primarily going to be concerned with family, genus, and species, and maybe order. Okay, with regard to plants, because I can look at a certain plant and know what order it's in by looking at the flowers. And sometimes, usually, I could tell what family it's in just by looking at the flowers. Okay, this is the kind of stuff that's going to benefit you once you leave this class. You'll be able to, hopefully, if you pay attention and if you grasp this concept. Remember, we don't want to just memorize it. We want to understand things and understand the concepts, all right? Not just memorize it and be able to repeat it without knowing what it means. We actually want to understand it. If you're able to do that, once you leave this class, you'll be able to look at a weed growing out of a crack in the sidewalk. And if you can see the flower, you'll get an idea of what family it's in, okay? If you see, like a member of the carrot family. The carrot family has really unique and distinct flower structures. Okay, it's actually an inflorescence structure. It's a bunch of flowers. It's the structure that holds many tiny flowers. Okay, they've got a compound number. We'll get to that later. But you'll be able to look at a weed growing in the crack of a sidewalk and say, hey, that's in the carrot family. I learned this in general botany class, whatever. Okay. But again, this is the same for every level of taxonomy has different traits that unite all the members in it. All right. And that's a result of how closely related they are. So taxonomy is the classification of living things. Linnaeus invented this system. He's the godfather of taxonomy. He was, what was he, Swiss or Swedish? I don't know. Some Northern European pasty looking guy, whatever. He was getting botanists sending back herbarium sheets with pressed plants on them, and he was classifying everything, organizing things according to their flower structure. This is before the theory of evolution was known. This is before Darwin came up with the theory of evolution. This is before evolution was even a theory, before DNA was known to exist. But Linnaeus knew back then to group plants together based on their reproductive parts, their sexy parts, their flowers. Okay. I don't know what he was doing with animals. Animals aren't my jam, but with plants, he was right on. He was grouping things together by their flowers. Turned out that's actually pretty good. That's a pretty good way to do it, because if two things have the same flower, turns out they're actually pretty closely related. The same flower structure. Okay. Different tweaks, different colors, different sizes, whatever, but they've got the same number of stamens, same pistil arrangement, same number of petals, etc. Okay. It turns out those things are pretty closely related. So, okay. The one exception we make to this is convergent evolution. Okay. Convergent evolution means two things look the same, at least at first glance. When you look up close, normally you can see that they don't look that similar, as we'll see in the example I'm about to show you. But they look similar, but they're not that closely related. A lot of times things look similar simply because they've been shaped, their evolutionary trajectory has been shaped by the same environmental stresses, like we will see with cacti and euphorbia. Okay, a lot of people call members of the genus Euphorbia a cactus, but it's not a cactus. They're not in the cactus family. Here's a great example. On the left, we have a cactus. This is Myrtillocactus geometrizans from central Mexico. And on the right, we have Euphorbia ingens. At first glance, they look almost the same. Okay, they both have spines. They're both green, succulent stems, but they are completely unrelated. Euphorbia ingens is related to poinsettia and rubber. It's in the Euphorbiaceae family. Myrtillocactus is an actual cactus. It's in the cactus family Cactaceae. All cacti are native to the Americas, North or South America. Okay, if you see a cactus in the Middle East, if you see a cactus in Africa or Australia, it was brought there by people within the last 500 years. They did not originate there. They did not evolve there. Okay, so how do we tell if we see this Myrtillocactus and Euphorbia, and they look so similar? How do we tell what they really are? Let's see. Let's go back to that. Lost for a minute. How do we tell what they really are? We look at their flowers, okay, their reproductive structures. When you're trying to figure out what plant family a plant that you're looking at is in, you look at the flowers. You don't look at the leaves. Sometimes leaves can give you a hint. 99% of the time, it's going to be flowers or fruits. Remember, flowers produce fruits. The fruit is an ovary. That ovary is inside a flower before it's pollinated and matures. So the flowers of each of these species look drastically different, though the vegetative forms look the same. Okay, here's a great example. On the left is a cactus flower. It's got these white tepals. It's got many white stamens, and you can't see it very well, but inside there is a style too. That's the female part of a flower. And this is where we're going to have to memorize flower parts. And on the right are the flowers of that euphorbia. Okay, and you can see they look drastically different. They're very reduced. They lack tepals. There's 5 yellow bracts, only 5 stamens. The euphorbias can produce, red variations on this general flower structure, but they're always going to look like this. Pretty reduced, 5 cyathial bracts. They're technically not petals. They're cyathial bracts. That applies specifically to the genus Euphorbia. Don't worry about that now. Just the whole other ballpark, a whole other arena. Those flowers don't look the same. Okay, there's also differences. You can look at the spines. The spines on a cactus are leaves. The spines on a euphorbia are stipules, which are just little bracts that protect the leaves. Okay, the key takeaway here is when trying to identify a plant, we first try to figure out what family it is in. So if you see a plant that you're not familiar with, you don't know what it is, you need to find flowers or fruits. Okay, sometimes leaves will give you a hint. Okay, but leaves can be very variable. Leaves can be very, quote, plastic. Okay, flowers can't. Flowers are conserved. We say they're conserved. That means that they are conserved throughout the lineage of a plant. Okay, they stay the same, though the leaf and the shape and the habit might change. A plant might be a tiny herb and it might be in the same genus as another plant that can turn into a tree. Okay, but when you look at the flowers, they're going to look the same. This tiny herb or this 30-foot tall tree. Okay, and that's the case with some plant families, like members of the sunflower family. They can produce little herbs. They can produce tall trees. They all have the same flower structure. Okay, we use flowers to identify what family a plant is in, not leaves. All right, everybody tries to look at leaves. All right, lay people do when they're getting into botany. You don't. You look at flowers. Flowers, reproductive structures. They're conserved. They're evolutionarily conserved. That's what we mean. Is that it stays the same despite however else the form of a certain species or lineage might change according to the effects of natural selection, the climate, the weather, the geology, herbivores, whatever. All right, there are cacti that still have leaves, okay, because cacti originally had leaves. They evolved spines because they were growing in seasonally dry places or deserts, and everything was trying to eat them because there wasn't much else on the landscape to eat. Okay, so we can use flowers and fruits, since fruits come from flowers. So flowers and fruits are good things to look at when they're what we need to look at when we're classifying plants. Okay, so what do you look at when you're checking out flowers? Among other aspects of a flower reproductive structure we look at is the flower radial. Word for this is actinomorphic, and you'll find this in that plant systematics textbook that I've asked you to download probably 15 times now from that Google Drive folder. I'll put the folder in the details of this video so you can get it again if you need to. And you can also use the book. I don't have it with me, but Botany in a Day, that's in there too. Okay. So numbers, we look at, is the flower radial or bisymmetrical? Okay. Is it radial like a pizza, or is it bisymmetrical like a heart shape? You can fold it one way and it'll be symmetrical, but the other way it won't. All right. That's termed being zygomorphic. A lot of flowers have a bisymmetrical shape because they're pollinated by a kind of bee, and the bee crawls into like a tunnel and then comes back out. All right, other flowers are radial because that's what works for them. It's just a different shape, but those are the two dominant flower shapes. Okay, radially symmetrical or bisymmetrical. Numbers, number of petals. That's a really easy one. We're always looking at numbers. Okay, how many petals, how many sepals, how many stamens, styles. Okay, most plants will only have one style. A style is the female part of a flower. It leads to an ovary, one fruit. Most flowers will only produce one fruit. Okay, there are exceptions, of course, like the rose family. A strawberry is technically, well, it's a compound fruit, but I won't get into that. It's a little bit more complicated. There's little nuances and complications to all these things, but these are the general rules. Position of stamens, male and pistil, female. You will need to know stamens are male and pistil are female. Remember, pistil is kind of counterintuitive. You think of like a pistol, like a gun, it's kind of analogous to like a male sexual organ. That's what helped me, at least. But it's counterintuitive. It's not in this case. It's the exact opposite. It's female. So pistil. Is the flower unisexual or bisexual? Okay, if a flower is bisexual, we call it perfect. It has both male and female parts on the same flower. Okay, and oftentimes flowers that are bisexual have male and female parts, but they will mature at different times to avoid self-pollinating. Why? So you don't get those recessive alleles stacking up. You're not inbreeding. Okay, you get more genetic diversity by outcrossing, and so to ensure outcrossing, many plants will have the stamens mature before the pistil does, or vice versa. Okay, or they mature at the same time, but they're at different levels. Like the stamens are a little bit taller than the pistil, whatever. Position of the ovary. Okay, inferior, superior, etc. What does that mean? Is it above the point of attachment of the petals or below? And there's diagrams. All this stuff is in the book. I believe it is chapter 9 in plant systematics, which is a whole chapter dedicated to plant morphology. Okay, got to download that book. All right, don't keep disappointing me, please. All right, biradial, disymmetric, radial, actinomorphic. You don't need to remember all these different words. I'm just showing you what's possible. Okay, bilateral. You can see there's a bilateral flower. Radial, actinomorphic, etc. Okay, different variations on a theme. All right, different kinds of flowers that are out there. The red flowers, obviously pollinated by birds or butterflies. White flowers, generally pollinated by moths, sometimes bats. This purple flower, bee pollinated, generally speaking, but really it's anything. These things evolve with their reproduction is shaped. Their pollination syndromes are shaped by their surrounding environment, by what pollinators are in their environments. But generally, red flowers, birds, white flowers, moths, etc. Anyway, flower parts. This is a key thing you will need to remember. All right, you should have a little copy of this. Flower parts. This is a generic flower structure. This is a bisexual flower. Obviously, it's going to be different. If for some plants are unisexual, they have unisexual flowers. Some plants will have, there's variations on all this, but this is the generic flower uh, uh, model. Okay, so just remember this stamen. A stamen is composed of pollen, anther, and filament. Okay, filament is the stalk that holds the anther up. The anther are the little banana shaped, in many cases, yellow things that release pollen. All right, then you've got the petals and the sepals. All right, the sepals altogether compose the calyx. So a calyx is a conglomeration of sepals. Calyx basically means bunch of sepals, where the sepals are. Corolla basically means petals, but it's all of them. It's the mass of petals, not just one petal. All right, and then the female part, the pistil, pistil, the gynoecium, that's the technical term for it. It can be composed of 1 to however many carpels. Don't worry about that. Is the pistil is composed of the stigma, the style, and the ovary from the top down. Stigma, style, ovary. That's how I helped myself learn it. Just kept repeating it. Stigma, style, ovary. Stigma, style, ovary. Stamen. Pollen, anther, filament. Pollen, anther, filament. Okay. The ovary turns into the fruit. You can see the ovary has ovules inside. Ovules are unfertilized seeds. Once they're fertilized, they're pollinated and fertilized, and there's a diploid zygote in there, they become seeds. All right, so the pollen lands on the stigma, germinates, sends a pollen tube down through the style, which is the stalk that holds the stigma up, and then pollinates, sends a sperm into the seed. Okay, flower sex staminate, unisexual male. Unisexual, okay, there's 2 different kinds of unisexual flowers, obviously. It can either be male or female. Staminate or pistillate. Okay, there's a pistillate flower. You can tell it's female because it's got that ovary, that swollen bit. All right, looks like a pistil, ovary, a style, and a stigma, but there's no stamens. And likewise, if you look at a flower and all you see are stamens and no pistil, right, no stigma, style, ovary, you're looking at a staminate, a male flower, a unisexual flowers. All right, flower attachment, sessile. All right, just means it doesn't have a pedicel, which is the stalk that holds the flower. Pedicellate, it does have a pedicel, but don't worry about that. That's not what we're worried about. And again, most flowers you're going to see are perfect, aka bisexual. Okay, the unisexual flowers are less common than seeing perfect bisexual flowers. Okay, let's focus on the part in the red box, the perianth. I already said this, but a flower perianth is composed of 2 subunits, the corolla and the calyx. The corolla is the aggregation of petals. The calyx is the term for the aggregation of sepals. Why would you have to know this? Because this is the terminology we use when we're talking about traits of a plant family's flower, so that if we know that, say, it's got 4 petals and 4 sepals, that it's in this family or this family or this family. There's only it's only a few plant families that only have 4 petals and sepals. Okay. um Flower sex, we already got to that part. Okay, yeah. So the perianth, is composed of the corolla and the calyx. Okay, and the corolla is composed of all the petals, and the calyx is composed of all the sepals. You'll need to know that. All right, this is just flower. This is just plant identification. All right, this is teaching you to know what to look for when you're trying to figure out what family a plant is in. Petals and sepals are not always distinct, however. Oftentimes, like in members of the nightshade family, the potato family, Solanaceae, and the flax family, Polemoniaceae, they fuse together to form a cup or a tube. Okay, you'll see this a lot in plants that are pollinated by flowers that are pollinated by things like hummingbirds, or flowers that are pollinated by moths. They've often got a tube flower, okay, compared with like a daisy, which is radial or whatever. So there you go. So 5 petals in a lot of angiosperms, 5 petals is the most common trait. But as you're seeing with the perianth fusion, okay, the petals are fused into a tube. You've got 5 petals fused into a tube to make a little funnel form tube. Okay, there can also be, the petals are distinct, but just the sepals are fused. The calyx is fused, like you see down here, third from left. Okay, all the way on the right, you see the sepals fused together and the petals fused together too. Okay, up here you see the sepals free, the petals free, all the way on the left. Aposepalous, sympedalous, all this stuff. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about those terminologies. Memorize them if you want them to. But basically, apo just means not fused. Sim means fused. Okay. And so that's what all those terminologies are referring to. Is the what part of the perianth is fused or free, etc. Okay. So inflorescence forms patterns. What's an inflorescence? Well, you rarely see one plant just producing one flower. Most plants produce a structure that holds dozens, if not hundreds, if not thousands of flowers in some cases, like an agave. And when an agave flowers, that inflorescence holds thousands of flowers, thousands of tiny flowers, some of them, okay, or hundreds. All right. That is an inflorescence. An inflorescence is a compound flower. All right, so it's not just one flower, it's many flowers. There's different types of inflorescences. Here's just a handful. A spike, there's individual flowers on a stalk, but they've got no stalk holding the flowers. They're just fused right to the main stalk, okay? Versus a raceme, where each flower has its own stalk, its own pedicel, as it's called, the stalk that holds the flowers, and then those are fused to the main stalk, the main inflorescence stalk. So spike, they're sessile. They sit on the main stalk. Raceme, they're pedicellate. They've got a pedicel that attaches them to the main stalk. Okay, then you've got corym, another type of inflorescence structure, a compound corym, a panicle. There's umbels, okay, like we'll see in the carrot family, etc. Okay, so to make that distinction too between a flower and an inflorescence, a compound flower, right? And inflorescence is just like a flower. You can use them to group to figure out what family to hint at what family a plant that you're looking at is in. Like again, members of the carrot family, they produce an inflorescence type called an umbel, and the umbel, a compound umbel. So it's an umbel within an umbel. It's a great, when you see that, you know it's either in the carrot family or in the English ivy family, Aureliaceae, either an Apiaceae or Aureliaceae. Okay, families, of course, should have mentioned this before. Families end in ACE, ACEAE. It's Latin. Don't worry about pronouncing it. I used to pronounce it ACA. You could pronounce it ACE. But if you see that those four letters at the end of a word, ACE, Asteraceae, Fabaceae, whatever, you know it's a family you're talking about. All right. So if you see a compound umbel, you know it's in the carrot family, or Aureliaceae, the sister family to the carrot family, the English ivy family, etc. Ginseng's in Aureliaceae. Okay, it's got a very distinct inflorescence structure. Okay, not just the carrot, not just the flower, but the inflorescence. Okay, so moving on, let's look at some plant families. All right, let's start with the mustard family. This is from Botany in a Day. The PDF is downloadable in the drive at the that's in this should be detailed. It should be in the details of the video. Okay. Unless I end up making this public, at which point I've taken it off due to copyright infringement. Okay. Patterns of the mustard family, right? This is a really easy family to figure out what you're looking at if you see it. Okay. It's got 4 petals, 4 sepals. All right. But unlike some other families that have 4 petals and 4 sepals, the mustard family always has four tall stamens and 2 short stamens. So 6 stamens. Remember, the stamen is the male part of the flower. So you'll have 4 petals and 6 stamens. That's very unique. That only applies to mustards. They also tend to produce these long calyx. This is the fruit. That fruit is inside that flower, and then when it's pollinated and fertilized, it matures into this long fruit. They can also produce these other kinds of fruits, other types of silicles, right? But these are just basically shortened, squatted down versions of this long thing, right? It almost looks like a bean pod, but it's not. Obviously, this is not the bean pod family. Okay, so these are great ways to identify a plant that it's in the mustard family. Okay, if you look at, there's many desert plants that grow around the school that have this flower structure, Hesperanthus linearifolius, or Hesperidanthus, excuse me, linearifolius, little purple mustard that has this exact same flower structure. Okay, and not only that, but look at the way the sepals are shaped. Okay, kind of rounded at the base, right? All this stuff. A lot of flowers, the mustard family, have anthers that look a very distinct way too, almost like little bananas, like little curled up elf shoes or something. It's hilarious. Right, so the shape and the form can be a good indicator as well. All right, and so here are some good examples. All right, this is Nerisirenia camporum, a desert mustard. You can see 4 petals, 4 sepals, See that little like yellow elf shoe almost curved to those anthers. There's the style in the middle right there. This, of course, has scales all over it. It grows in the desert. Physaria fendleri, another little desert desert brassica, desert mustard. You could see 6 stamens if you count them. You know, if you got a hand lens, if you just take a nice photo, even just a macro cell phone photo, whatever, you can normally be able to count all the stamens in there. All right, it looks like a mustard flower. I can see this right away from 2 feet away and be like, that's a mustard. If I've never seen it before, I would know that's a mustard family. So then I would know what to look for, what part of like a flora, a written flora to look for, to start going through what members of the mustard family grow in the area and figuring out what that was, keying it out. Okay, Streptanthus carinatus. This is from Big Bend. Okay, same thing. All right, different, slightly different look to it, but at the end of the day, it's 4 petals, 4 sepals, and 6 stamens in there. And those anthers, those yellow things, have that same weird, deranged, like elf shoe slash banana. You know, like Santa's little elves, right? You ever been banned from a shopping mall, you know, for having to do the Santa costume? You know, you come in, you kind of drunk on whiskey or something every night. I don't know, maybe not. Me neither. Just saying, that's what I think of when I think of Santa's little helpers. Okay. Just putting that out there, checking to see if you're awake. And if you're not, if I was teaching this class, we were in person right now, I'd start, screaming right now, clapping, making sure that people are staying awake during this. All right. Santa's little helpers. All right. You didn't want to take that job, but you had to after you got fired from the shoe store. Next thing you know, you're having to dress up as Santa Claus in a mall and get peed on by little kids. Anyway, all right, here we go. Asparadanthus linearifolius. All right, same thing. It's a mustard, 4 petals, 6 stamens. All these are just variations on the same floral structure because they are all in the same family and they all have a shared ancestor. All right, cactus family, of course, this is a really distinct flower structure. Okay, you've got many stamens in there. This is kind of a lousy photo. Many stamens, and you got that style, the pistils in the center of the flower, radial flowers, many, many stamens, more than just 5. Most cactus flowers have like 100 stamens, right? And then they've got that, like that's the style shape on the Echinocereus dasyacanthes. That stigma actually is a stigma and the style parts of the pistil. That stigma is green, looks like a little hand. It's got many lobes to it, and then there's hundreds of stamens surrounding it. Prickly pear, same thing, right? There's no distinct. That's another thing. When there's not a distinction between petals and sepals, it's not just one whorl of sepals, one whorl of petals. When there's so many, you can't really tell what they are. They call it tepals. Okay, like some lilies will have tepals. Other irises have tepals or whatever. Anyway, if there's no clear distinction, they're tepals. Okay, petals and sepals. If there's no clear distinction, there's tepals. Don't worry about that so much. They're doing the same thing. They're just acting as attractants for pollinators. Okay, Cylindra puncha imbricata. All right, horrible plant to brush up against because those barbed spines stick into you. But at the end of the day, there's the stigma, part of the pistil, the female part, and you've got all those stamens surrounding it, and you've got, look at all that pollen on there. The bees are really messy. Peyote, there's a peyote flower. See, same thing, many stamens in there. You can see the yellow anthers on top of it. The flowers, because peyote grows in such dry, hot places, the flowers are kind of sunk into the plant, not getting too exposed where they can get hit by the drying winds, etc. But you've got all these tepals, okay, and a 5-lobed stigma, and then all those anthers around there. Okay, same floral structure. Okay, Rubiaceae, the coffee, the madder family. All right, generally, not always, 4 petals, 4 stamens arising from the petals. Inferior ovary. Okay, inferior. We didn't get into this. I didn't put a slide in there for ovary position. I should have. I'll have to update that before I upload the PDF. But inferior ovary means that the ovary is below the point. It's below the petals and the sepals. Superior ovary means it's above the petals and the sepals. You can also have half inferior, etc., but that's not that common. All right. Gallium, apirin, bedstraw, partridgeberry, Michella, repens. You get that in places like Michigan, Wisconsin, northern latitude places. Cephalanthus occidentalis, that's a riparian plant. You'll get that in the river. There's Cephalanthus occidentalis right now, aka button willow. Looks like a single flower, but it's actually many flowers when you get up close. And each one of those flowers has 4 petals. Okay, there's like 80 flowers there. They're all attaching to that central axis, and they've got, what is that, 2 stamens coming out of each flower. All right, Bouvardia ternifolia, that's a West Texas native. Same thing. It's a floral tube because it's pollinated by butterflies and hummingbirds, but at the end of the day, it's 4 petals fused together and then the stamens are inside. And the sepals are way down here. They're reduced. Houstonia acerosa. Okay, same thing. 4 petals, 4 stamens, and then that's the sepals right there. And then the rest, these got these ericoid green leaves. This is another common Texas plant. You'll see it growing on limestone. Patterns of the Loasa family. There's a few of these behind the school. A few members of these in the genus Menzelia. Here's a great example, Menzelia procera. What are synapomorphies shared traits? Synapomorphies are shared traits of all the plants in a family. Of the flowers here, numerous stamens, kind of like cacti, 5 petals, 5 sepals, and an inferior ovary. This thing right here that looks like the stem, that actually turns into a fruit, like you can see here. That dry capsule fruit, there's tons of seeds inside. It's an inferior ovary. Menzelia procera. Loasa elongata, that's another one. This is from South America. It's a stinger plant. Savalia sinuata is another Texas plant that's also in this family. And the leaves that we don't normally use plants together, the leaves often have like barbed hairs on them. They don't hurt, stick to your shirt like Velcro. That's why it's called the Velcro leaf family. Another common name for it. Patterns of the pea family. Okay, the pea family, Fabaceae, is huge. All right, so it's actually also divided up into 3 main subfamilies. Okay, remember subfamily groupings end in oide. Ooh, forget that e. Third in e. Forget that third e. It's just oideae. That's a typo. Anyway, oide. If you see oide, you know it's a subfamily. Okay, Apostanoide, Asclepiodoide, Faboide. All right, and families end in ace, like P family Fabaceae, Aceae. All right, each subfamily has its own unique flower pattern. Okay, you've got 3 main subfamilies. I think now there's like 5, but just worry about these 3 for now. This is the easiest way to learn it. Faboideae, the pea subfamily, Caesalpinioideae, the senna subfamily, and Mimosoideae, the mimosa subfamily. Let's go through them and see what they look like. Okay, this is the pea subfamily Faboideae. You have a banner, wing petals, and 2 keel petals fused together that actually looks like a boat keel. And the stamens and stigma are inside there. And you'll see that on some of the flowers I got coming up. Okay, so banner petal, wing petals, keel petal. If you see a flower that looks like that, it's in the pea subfamily, no doubt. Okay. There's a great example. Banner petal, wing petals, keel petal. This is Zornia bracteata from the Texas sand sheet. Centrosema virginianum. This is from Southwest Arkansas. I dissected it, took one of the wing petals and a keel petal off. You can see it's got the 9 fused stamens and 1 free stamen. That's another synapomorphy of Faboideae, of the pea subfamily. It's called being Diadelphis. Okay. It says Baunia drummondii. This is a plant you'll see, like in the lakes around Austin, etc. Okay, growing in an irrigation ditch, whatever. Same thing. It's just a pea. You look at those flowers up close. You got a banner, 2 wing petals, and a keel petal. It's a pea. It's a Faboideae, specifically the subfamily of Fabaceae, Faboideae. Okay, the other subfamily here is Caesalpinia subfamily, Caesalpinioideae. All right, there's a general idea of the Caesalpinioid flower structure. You've got the ovary, it turns into just a pea pod, long style, and then a stigma, and then a few stamens. All right, and then you've got a nectary down there, which produces nectar, attracts bees and hummingbirds in the first place, petals, sepals, etc. Let's look at some examples. Camocrista texana. Okay, you can see that doesn't look like that banner, wings, and keel structure, right? It's got actually 5 distinct petals. These are all the stamens inside, these big juicy banana-shaped things. There's the style coming off to the right. That's the female part. So these are all the male parts. Then there's that style, the female part. All right, Erythrostemon mexicanus. Same thing. All right, same flower structure. Hopefully you're seeing the similarities in these flower structures. Texas Palo Verde, okay, Parkinsonia texana. 5 petals, the stamens, and the style is in there too. See, there's a style right there. 1 single style and many stamens. All right, so if you're always trying to figure out what's the male part, what's the female part, you're always going to have many stamens and many less styles. Generally 1 style. Just the pistil will be by itself, and then the stamens will all be much more numerous. There's many more male parts of the flower than female parts. Okay, pea family mimosa subfamily, sensitive plant, mimosa, misc in this as well. Okay, there's the general flower structure. It looks like that's the inflorescence. Remember, that little pom-pom thing is not a single flower. That's an inflorescence composed of many flowers. This is what the individual flower looks like. The stamens are very long. They poke out of that perianth, the petals and the sepals. Here is formerly Prosopis glandulosa, Miski, just regular good old Texas Miski. Now it's in Neltuma is the genus. Okay, you've got genus species, of course, Neltuma glandulosa. It's always written in italics, and the species name is never capitalized. All right, Texas Miski, that's the same thing. You look at a Miski flower up close, it's a bunch of tiny flowers on a raceme. Okay, and there's the petals. You can barely see them. There's the petals. That little, much smaller whorl down there is the sepals, the calyx, and the petals. The corolla up there, and you've got all these stamens pouring out of each flower, and somewhere in each flower has one single style, which pertains to one single fruit. But of course, when this big flower spike on a mesquite is pollinated, it's only going to turn into 2 or 3 fruits. Not every one of those flowers is going to turn into a fruit. The plant selects only 2 or 3. It doesn't have enough energy to turn each one of those flowers into a fruit. Okay, this is Vichelia rigidula. Same thing going on. Okay, blackbrush acacia, really common plant in South Texas and Southwest Texas. All right, it's the same thing. Many flowers, the stamens protruding out. Okay, Caliandra, I didn't never find out what species this was. I saw it in Brazil. It's obviously evolved with hummingbird pollination, but you've got the same thing. Many flowers together. The stamens are drastically, exponentially longer than the petals here. So a lot of members of Mimosoideae, the mimosa subfamily of the pea family Fabaceae, do that. Same thing right here. Vichelia vernicosa, same thing. Mimosa quadrivalvis, same thing. The pink filaments. It's kind of cool. Those green anthers. The pollen must be green too. And then there's the petals, and the sepals are tiny. The sepals are like 1 millimeter long. The petals are a little bit bigger. And you've got those. The whole thing looks like a firecracker. All right, dogbane family, milkweed subfamily. Same thing. Apocynaceae is the family. The milkweed subfamily is Asclepiodoideae. I didn't put the main family in there because we've only got a few members in West Texas that we'll talk about, or that we could talk about, right? But everybody knows milkweeds, or at least hopefully you do. Really important plant, host plant for monarchs, and really unique flower structure, okay? You've got this thing. That's a single milkweed flower. Often you'll see a bunch of them together on an inflorescence. Okay, you've got a corona. You've got a stigmatic slit. The stamens are inside that general structure. Totally unique, okay? Nothing else produces a flower like this that's not in the milkweed subfamily Asclepiodoides. So if you see a flower like that, great, easy giveaway. It's either a milkweed or it's in the Asclepiodoides subfamily. Asclepias prostrata, an endangered plant from South Texas. There you go, same thing. Look at that. Look at those weird flowers, okay? And this whole flower structure is so distinct and unique. It's got its own vernacular to it. It's got its own list of terms that apply to it. Hoods, corona, gynostegium, etc. Okay, stigmatic slit, etc. Don't worry about all that. Just know that's a milkweed flower. Same thing. Variations on a theme. Asclepias asperula, antelope horns. All right, same genus, different species, variation on that general flower structure. That pentagonal assortment of hoods and horns. The horns come out of the hoods, etc. Okay, Modelea biflora. This grows near Austin on the Edwards Plateau. Same general thing. There's the same structure, but it's inside a smaller flower structure. Okay, really unique. It's all hairy. It grows in a dry place. Okay, carrot family, Apiaceae, carrot and parsley family. Remember, I was telling you about a compound umbel. This is what I was talking about. This compound umbel up here in the upper left part of the screen that's got to have 50 tiny flowers on it. The actual tiny flower looks like this right here. That's the ovary. That's the fruit. So 2 carpels. Carpels are part of an ovary, and that's the whole fruit. Up here, this is the style and stigma, these little bug antenna looking things, and then the stamens are right there. Okay, so let's look at a plant. Let me see if I can plug this thing in. My battery's about to die. This keeps happening to me. Okay. So there you go. So there's carrot. There's carrot. This is wild carrot, the wild progenitor of grocery store carrots. And there's the flower structure. Okay, this is an invasive plant in much of the United States. It originated in Europe. It's escaped cultivation, and it grows as a roadside weed in many parts of the Midwest and East Coast. Okay, that's a compound umbel. Okay, looks like a flipped upside down umbrella, like an umbrella that the wind just blew out. All right, and there, each one of those white things is a tiny flower. Okay, Azarella compacta. On the other side of the world, this is in northern Chile, really weird plant. This is one plant, this green lump. That's another plant. Okay, really this plant known by plant nerds all over the world just for how bizarre it is. That's a member of the carrot family, and they can live very long. There's the individual flowers. Still have an umbel thing going on, but it's so reduced because these things grow at 15,000 feet elevation. So that umbel has been basically taken down into the plant, only produces a few flowers instead of many of them, and it's basically sessile on these little rosettes of leaves. All right, that's what the plant looks like, and it leaks this kind of tar that smells like kind of like a variation on parsley. Same secondary chemistry, same alkaloids, same chemicals, etc., being produced by all the members of this family, or slightly tweaked variations on it. Okay. Another variation on it, Pizzoa coriacea, another member of the carrot family. There's the same thing, compound umbel, tiny flowers. This looks like it's actually got these petals on it, not so reduced. The petals are a little bit bigger, but you've still got a bunch of tiny flowers looking like a flipped upside down umbrella uh, on that structure. Here's a really weird one from the subtropical island of New Caledonia. This is a tree. This is a carrot that's a tree. You can see how thick those Apiopetalum velutinum, a small tree in the carrot family, Apiaceae. But when you look at those flower structures, you've still got a compound umbel, and you've got that bicarpellate ovary. Okay, I would see that and say, yeah, that's in the carrot family. That looks like a carrot family. The leaves don't look anything like a carrot. Okay, the leaves have evolved in a subtropical climate where they get a lot of rain during the wet season, then you've got a dry season where it doesn't rain, and so they've got that velvet on the underside. They've evolved according to what makes sense in that climate, but the flowers have stayed the same. Remember, leaves can be plastic, flowers are conserved. Flower structures are conserved. Daucus pusillus in fruit. These are the fruits. The flowers are gone. You've got a bicarpellate little fruit that sticks to you. It's got those spines on it. It's a sticker. Lomatium dissectum, same thing. Compound umbel. This is a plant in Nevada. Okay, we'll end it there for now. Okay, going back to taxonomy of living things. Next, we're going to talk about phylogenetics, taxonomy, cladistics, how we group things. Okay, their synapomorphies are the shared traits by all the members of a family. They can be molecular as well. As you can see, these are 8 different species, 8 different example species, and there's a little section of DNA code right there, and you can see they're generally the same, except between areas 115 and 120, there's slight mutations in all of them. And so this is what, botanists will actually do, taxonomists will do when they're comparing different organisms' DNA sequences. You can actually, it looks like this. It looks like differences, like these things are obviously, taxa 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, and 8 are closely related. They all share this same bit of code, GTTCAA, and then taxon 2 and 5 are more related to each other than they are to these other ones because they've both got this deletion right here. That whole section of code between 115 and 120 is deleted, okay? Those are molecular synapomorphies. We're going to teach this. We're going to get into this next class, but I really want you to get into that flower structure. It's really important, okay? Stamens, pistils, biradial, bilateral, perianth, parts, petals, sepals, calyx, corolla, staminate, pistillate, etc. Staminate automatically means male. I want you to be able to look at the word staminate or stamen and automatically think male part, pollen, and then look at pistillate or the word pistil and automatically think, okay, female part, fruit, and seeds. All right. We'll end it there. Again, this is chapter 9 in plant systematics, and then also botany in a day is where some of those diagrams were from. Okay, botany in a day, like this one is botany in a day, both available on that Google Drive folder. All right. So I'll see you Wednesday. Please read up. Please read on it. Don't disappoint me. Don't break my heart. I really want you to learn this stuff. This is stuff you'll take with you, and you will be quizzed on it as well, or you'll have an exam rather. So, okay, here we go. Have a good rest of your night. Take care. Bye.